On this episode of Clear the Air,
I mean, I went up, when we were preparing for this, I went up and was watching the video on YouTube about when Sonny Perdue came out and started talking about my plate, and it was hilarious because you'd see all these places where kids had gone in and said, they made me watch this, and this is so dumb.
Skinless chicken breast seems to be good.
So you should eat as much chicken breast as you eat Lucky Charms.
How do they equate those two?
I have no idea. I guess the problem is who do you think funded this research? And even though they claim they didn't have any influence on what was actually published and put out, who do you think funded it? Hello, and welcome to the Clear the Air podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Jones, and today I'm here with Joel Melton.
Hey, everybody. Good to be with you.
Today we will be discussing how accurate the American Health Association's food compass really is. But before that, how's your week been?
My week has been good. I've started training for a half marathon, so it's been painful, but it's been good.
A half marathon?
Yes. Not until March, so I got plenty of time to...
You know, that's funny. I'm going to throw this out there. I was down at my nephew was getting married, and, you know, when you go to the dinner the night before, they do all these funny things, and, you know, they try to embarrass each other.
Yeah.
Well, my brother doesn't run. His wife runs, and his new and my nephew runs, but his now wife, because they got married, his wife isn't a runner. And Peter, my brother, comes out and he's like, "Hey, what I got you right here is a pass to go run a 10K, I think it was." And then he goes on, he goes, "Yeah, you know, if you want to upgrade it, you can. At your own expense. I'm not going to pay to upgrade it. But it is an upgradable ticket to go do this 10K. You know, a long time ago, my wife, she started running, and she tried to get me to run. And, you know, and I think I tried to, and it just didn't work for me. So I don't run, and it was just really miserable. And so he just went on and was like, "Yeah, that was miserable, but I'm never running again. I don't run. It's not what I do." So my question is why are you starting out with a half marathon? Why don't you start out with a 5K?
I've done it before. I just stopped and gained a bunch of weight. Now I got to lose it all and start running again. Yeah, I've done about 15 half marathons. I've done 2 full marathons and a couple of triathons.
I've never even, outside of the Boy Scout little jog around the track or something, I've never been in a running race in my life.
Oh, it's the only thing that'll keep me training. Once I pay the fee, even though it's under $100, it makes me get up every morning knowing that I paid that fee. I just can't let it go by. So that's what drives me. I haven't paid the fee yet, so I'm on the honor system. They haven't opened it up. But next month when they open it up, I'm paying it.
What run is this?
This is just a local city run, the Riverton Half Marathon. But it's the fastest marathon I've run, and it's not very fast, but it's the fastest for me. So I'm trying to beat my time.
Well, you know, that's pretty good. When I was in the military, we had to run 2 miles. It wasn't a race; it was just against the clock, so it wasn't a running race.
Right.
But we had the advantage of they would always put it on a hill, so we were always running downhill.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
it was you know where Camp Williams is.
Yeah,
we ran from Camp Williams 2 miles down Redwood Road.
Oh yeah,
down into Riverton area.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a bad run.
So yeah, except I can't remember. It was either your calves or your shins. One of the two hurt like hell after that because when you're running downhill, I don't know. I don't.
Yeah, trying to brake. You're putting the brakes on while you're trying to go forward though, so you don't lean over.
So whatever that is, I don't know. But it hurt more than what it did because I would usually train for a day or two before I would go run that.
Yeah. I did one out of the canyon, and right under my kneecap was really where it was sore because you're trying to brace yourself and stay upright while you're going down. It was a 5% grade down, and that one was the worst one that I had run and just made me sore knees.
Is that the one out of the canyon?
It was down in Spanish Fork.
Oh, no, this was one up out of Big Cottonwood, I want to say.
I haven't run that one.
Yeah, this sister-in-law had run one of these local marathons and qualified for like the New York or the Boston Marathon.
Oh, wow.
And I'm trying to remember. I don't know that she ever actually went and ran it because I think it was in 2019 she qualified and she was going to go run it in 2020 and they canceled it. I think.
Yeah,
I
I've
think,
never had aspirations to go that far. I wouldn't qualify for the Boston, but I certainly like the challenge that it gives me for my size. So that's how my week started. A little painful, but good.
My week started. What did I do? I spent the weekend in Washington, D.C. at the Rescue the Republic rally.
Oh, yeah. How was that?
It was interesting. I went out there because I think I've made it abundantly clear that our public health agencies are non-existent to corrupt beyond repair. I'm not going to say that I agree with all of the political views of the people that were speaking there, but it was, Robert Kennedy, it was Robert Malone, it was Pierre Corey, it was Tulsi Gabbard. All of these people that were traditionally Democrats who are now running with Trump for president and supporting Trump. And it was a rally really to get people to understand that one of the big issues that's going to, that needs to be addressed in this is the state of health in the United States. And, Robert Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy Jr., whatever, he's come out and they've talked about how what they're going to do is come in and change a lot of what isn't working. A lot of people paint him simply as an anti-vaxxer, which even if you talk to him, he's not an anti-vaxxer. He just thinks that the vaccines, the companies making the vaccines, should either test the vaccines for safety or be liable for them. And I don't. When you explain it like that, most people are like, makes sense to me.
Yeah, for sure.
But the vaccines in our country aren't tested for safety, and the companies that make them aren't backing up their what do they call it? They're not liable for damage and injury, which is why they've run amok.
Yeah, so it just sounds like just on the basis, common sense, right? They're just asking for us to go back to that. It seems over the years when, all the things came in, they just started putting layers and layers on vaccines or medicine or food or whatever it is. And now people just want to take it down to the base level and really find out and be true to it. And I think that's a good cause. And like I said, I don't know that I agree with everyone's ideologies, but I agree with that when it comes to health. So anyways,
I went out there. It was actually good. I went out there with my two daughters, and we attended the rally. We went to a dinner afterwards where there was probably 50 people, where all the speakers were at, and we got to meet them and say hi to them.
Oh, cool.
That was actually really cool. It was well worth it. I mean, Brett Weinstein was out there, Dark Horse podcast. I've watched that for years. Who's the British actor, comedian? He was there. I can't remember his name.
Is it Russell?
Russell Brand.
Russell Brand.
He was there. Anyways, what we're talking about today is something that has been in the media over the last couple of months, and I thought it was interesting. I thought it was such a comedy show that I figured we would talk about it. So the food pyramid. When we were growing up, it was the food pyramid. And you had grains and everything on the bottom, and then you had fruits and veggies, and then you had meats, and then you had sugary snacks at the top. And then they redid that it was when Sonny Perdue was the head of the Department of Agriculture. That would have been, I want to say 2010-ish, 2011-ish, and they came up with My Plate, which was more confusing and didn't make as much sense. And now they're coming out with a new one called the Food Compass, which I can't even understand it. The interesting part of it is I tried. I just don't understand. Yeah. I would think that what I was hoping when I first read that was that it was more of directions on how each and every person can figure out what works for them, but it wasn't. Really they're just telling you more stuff that I guess it's more propaganda. But the interesting part of that is that I want to say it's not Baylor. Baylor's down in Texas. It's what's Tufts? Was it Tufts? I think it's Tufts University. Yeah. They went and they used an algorithm and they programmed this using this My Plate stuff, or the Food Compass stuff, sorry, using Food Compass inputs. And what they came up with was absolutely ridiculous. Like, my 11-year-old daughter knows how stupid this is. and that's why it's been in the media, is because how ridiculously stupid this is. I mean, it just is. So we're going to play a game right now. Yes, it was Tufts University.
Yes.
And we're going to play a game, and you have to guess between 1 and 100 where each of these foods lie. And I think you already have seen this, and so I'm going to ask some that you don't know about very well.
Sure. I haven't looked through it, so.
Okay. So it goes between 1 and 100, and anything above 70 is to be encouraged and eaten a lot of, I guess. Anything from 70 to 30 is to be eaten in moderation, and anything under 30 is something to be minimized, not eaten, except eaten
Very seldom.
seldom.
Yeah.
Okay? So where on that would you find whole milk?
Whole milk, I would guess in. You want me to guess the number or that range?
The number.
So-
Let's start with the range, and then go with the number.
So I think it's in the mid-range,
Okay?
and I would probably say. You said 30 to 70, so I would probably say a 40, mid-40s, 45.
It's 40 now.
Oh.
Okay. What about frosted mini wheats to go with that milk?
Well, personally, I would rate it higher, but I would imagine the scale would be rated in the low, minimal eating. So below 30, I would say probably in the teens, maybe in a 12 or
Okay.
13.
Well, sugar-laden frosted mini wheats, loaded with sugar, comes in at 87. You should be eating those nonstop.
Well, let's go break. Let's have a cereal break.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
What about cheese? Cheddar cheese.
Cheese, I would put in the mid-range and probably higher, probably in the 60, 62 range.
Well, that is down in the bottom, not to be eaten except during a catastrophe. Cheddar cheese is a 28.
Oh, wow.
Okay. What about a Lucky Charms cereal?
Lucky Charms cereal. Well,
Highly processed food, lots of sugar.
yeah.
Where would that be?
Well, again, if my sons were choosing this, they would put it way up at the top. But I would think it would be at the bottom. I would think it would be in the lower range, in the teens.
Well, you need to eat more Lucky Charms than you do milk. Lucky Charms comes in at a 60, to be eaten with moderation.
Oh, wow.
Okay. What about sweet potato fries?
Sweet potato fries.
Not sweet potatoes, fries.
Sweet potato fries, yes, they're fried. Everyone claims that sweet potatoes are good, but anything fried is fried. So I would put that at the low end of the middle, so probably a moderate.
Well, you're at the opposite end of the middle. It's high. It's 69.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Now how about this one? An egg substitute fried in vegetable oil, which vegetable oil is a seed oil. So, okay. Egg substitute fried in vegetable oil.
Sounds like it's probably not good for you, so I would put that at the 30s.
Well, that is a 62, to be eaten in moderate amounts.
In the vegetable oil.
Yeah. Okay. What about chocolate covered almonds?
Personally, those should be 100, but I imagine they're probably different.
Okay. Where do you
Probably
think they are?
55.
They're a 78. You should be eating the crap out of them.
Good.
Anyways, how about watermelon?
Watermelon should be high. Well, I don't know how much nutritional value. It's certainly got a lot of water in it, of course. I would put that up pretty high in the 80s.
It's 100. You should be eating that nonstop.
Oh, wow.
And I don't know that I disagree with that, but I don't know that I agree with it, because watermelon, it does have a lot of water, but it's rather sweet. So
Yeah.
I'm assuming it has sweetness.
Yeah.
What about kale?
Kale should never be eaten, personally, but that kale, let's see, I would guess that's in the 60s.
No, that's 102.
That's 100. Eat it
Yeah.
all the time.
Yep.
Wow.
Okay, what about skinless chicken breasts?
Skinless chicken breast seems to be good. I would put that in the Probably the lower part of the top, so just over 70, 72.
Okay, well, it is lower. I mean, no. It's right above Lucky Charms. So you should eat as much chicken breast as you eat Lucky Charms.
How do they
Okay?
equate those two?
I have no idea. But here's another good one. What about canned pineapple? Not fresh, but canned pineapple in heavy syrup. Okay, and they say heavy syrup. You know what that means is a lot of sugar.
Yeah, the
added sugar.
Yeah, the heavy syrup is the kicker. I can imagine where it is, but you'd think pineapple would fruit, so the average person would think this is fruit, probably in the 60s.
51, which I think it should be down at the bottom.
With that heavy syrup.
With the
certainly.
heavy syrup, absolutely.
Yeah, it should be below 30.
I think fresh pineapple is better for you.
Yeah.
Okay, so where's ground beef?
Ground beef, that should be probably a little lower than chicken.
Ground beef is a 26 to be minimized.
Really?
Yeah, which I disagree with that. I mean, if you're eating a ground chuck that doesn't,
Yeah.
I mean, that has tons of fat. And I mean, we need fats, and fats have traditionally, and this is my opinion, fats have traditionally been villainized. Mm-hmm. But I know a lot of people who eat a lot of fat and a lot of protein, and those become some of the healthiest people I know.
Yeah, because I think the insinuation or the thought process is if you're eating fat, it turns right into fat in you.
Yeah, that's not true.
And that's not true.
Eat sugar, it turns right into fat.
Right.
Okay, let's do a couple more on this, but what about a whole egg, a real egg, not a fake egg, fried in real butter? Not seed oil.
Yeah, a real egg and butter, I would guess in the 50s, mid-50s.
It's 29. It's to be minimized.
Oh, wow.
Which I'm sad to hear that because I have sausage and eggs practically every morning. If I have breakfast, that's what I'm eating.
Yeah, me too. And so it's over the
Maybe that's what my problem is.
egg substitute.
But I only eat breakfast when my kids are at my house.
Sure.
So I eat it in the summer and every other week in the winter because that's when they're there. Because if I'm not cooking breakfast for them, I usually don't eat breakfast. I just grab a handful of watermelon, kale, and frosted mini wheats.
Just make a little mixture, huh?
Yeah. Here's one more. Non-fat frozen yogurt.
Non-fat frozen yogurt. Well,
Okay, this is frozen yogurt. You know
Right.
it's loaded with sugar.
Right.
So where are we at on that?
So that one would be below 30, right?
Nope, it's 80.
80.
You should be eating
That all the time.
Eating it all the time.
This is all according to the Food Compass.
This is all according to the Food Compass. And what Tufts pointed out that, I mean, these are obvious errors that should have been addressed.
Yeah.
But, I guess the problem is who do you think funded this research? And even though they claim they didn't have any influence on what was actually published and put out, who do you think funded it?
The NIH?
Well, I think they put in some, but it was supported by Danone, the
Oh,
yogurt
sure.
company.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why non-fat frozen yogurt is
Yeah,
way up
that's
there
the way
at the
it was
top.
up.
And some of the other things that did it. The National Institutes of Health is here, which, since COVID, I don't think anybody trusts the National Institutes of Health anyways.
Yeah.
So what do you think about this?
Well, I think when you originally talked about it, I think you were saying the Food Compass should be giving us directions. So metaphorically, you think a compass gives us some direction. But it sounds like what they're doing is putting a food around each degree of the compass, and you can eat it at certain varied times. I think it's probably a mistake. I don't really believe what that is, just because what we know about real fat intake, what we do processed foods and everything. I think it's certainly something that they haven't thought all the way through or was given as propaganda.
Well, I would agree with that. I think that, the United States has roughly 350 million people, and I think that any government agency that comes out and says, this is what you should eat to 350 million people is absolutely bonkers stupid. And there's a lot of things that our government has been doing, especially in the last 5 years, that fits that bill. I mean, the whole COVID response was absolutely bonkers stupid. What they've been doing with nutrition, these people have to know and understand. And I think that one of the major problems is that our public health agencies are run by bureaucrats. They're not run by public health people in public health. Not only are they run by bureaucrats, but they're run by physicians. And physicians, and I think I've said this in podcasts before, physicians are great. They're not trained, though, in nutrition. They're not trained in exercise. They're not trained in hygiene. They're not trained in sanitation. And that's what public health is. So if you get a doctor who's been trained in pharmacopoeia and how to take a sick person and make them better, which is an important quality to have,
Sure.
and one that we need, and put them in charge of public health, well, okay, then we're going to get what we have, and that is a public health department that runs off of pharmaceuticals.
Sure.
And that really is what is going to happen here is they're going to make people sick, and they're going to need more pharmaceuticals.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. So even their personal agenda aside, it seems like they're pushing to either maintain or keep their position or their job and pushing that agenda. And even if we don't get really deep politically on it, I think that's part of the mistake, like you said. They have a specialty, but if you go anywhere else in the world, you have to be qualified in what you do. But here they can take someone with a adjacent qualification, put them into that, and now they're, like you said, doing pharmacology and pushing that, which is evident here. I mean, there's plenty more out there that you could find that would give better information than sugared cereal as the top of the list to eat all the time.
I mean, that's absolutely crazy. But I think that the public health department, I think that the NIH or the Surgeon General's office or the CDC, or Bobby Kennedy, if they really want to promote health, they have to come up with a program that our public health department has where public health facilitates the ability of each person to find out what works for them. And before we started, I was telling you a story in my own life. I have a sister who taught nutrition at Yale for a long time, decades. But this is about 15, 16, 17 years ago. I was flying home from Europe, and there was this lady sitting next to me, and I didn't talk to her or anything. But then we landed in Chicago. This was an American Airlines flight. I've flown millions and millions of miles on them. But when I got on the flight from Chicago to Salt Lake, she was sitting by me again. And then they bring out the little meal, and she didn't eat any of it. And I said, well, why aren't you eating any? And she goes, well, I'm a vegetarian. And I said, why are you a vegetarian? And she goes, well, I read this book. It's called The China Study. And, it's really interesting. And we sat and chatted about it for a while. It turns out she lives in, Orem, right by where I live. And I came home. The next day, I went down to Provo Airport, and I was pulling out my little plane to go fly somewhere. I can't remember where I was going. But as I was pulling it out, the hangar door next to mine opened, and this guy comes out. And I knew the guy, but I didn't recognize him at first because he'd lost so much weight. And finally, he came over and said, hey, what's going on? And I said, George, you've lost like 50, 60 pounds. What's going on? He goes, well, I read this book called The China Study. And I'm like,
wow.
Maybe that's a sign from God.
Twice as many days, huh?
Yeah, so twice. And so, he sat there and chatted, and I chatted with him about it. And he started one of the co-founders of one of the largest vitamin companies in the United States, Nature's Way. So I left there, and I went up to Barnes & Noble, and I bought the book. I bought The China Study. As I'm looking at it, I flipped it over, and it was written by a Colin Campbell, who was a professor at Cornell, which is where my sister went to, got her PhD in nutrition. Mm-hmm. So I called my sister, and I said, Debbie, do you know this guy? And she goes, yeah, he's good. I've read it, and she was, at that point, she was more of a vegetarian than she is now. So I bought the book. I read it. A lot of what it said made sense. And so I actually became a vegetarian, not a strict vegetarian, but pretty much a vegetarian for like a year. And I got really fat. And it's been hard, ever since then, it's been hard for me to lose that. But the biggest I've ever been was when I was doing that. And I went out someplace and I got on a scale. We were going to go, where were we going? I can't remember. But they had us get on a scale. And I'm like, holy crap. And so I quit being a vegetarian, and I went on a keto diet to lose the weight. And I lost it. I lost nearly 100 pounds. I got back down to 225, so nearly 100 pounds by doing a very strict keto diet and working out a lot.
Sure.
And so, and even today, I try to minimize the carbs that I'm eating. Now, to flip that over, I have a neighbor who I play cards with a lot, but he's a vegetarian. and it works for him. He's not overweight. He's rather healthy. So I think that really what the public health agencies should be doing is not telling people and giving people a one-size-fits-all, but giving people a compass, a roadmap on how to find out what works for them. I mean, if you don't like eating steak or red meat, a keto diet probably isn't for you.
Mm-hmm.
And some people don't like eating, they don't like the taste of red meat, they don't like the texture. I have a niece who's a vegetarian. She's not that healthy, but she doesn't eat meat because she doesn't like the texture. So obviously being a keto isn't going to work for her.
Right.
So,
well, I look back on that, and I think when I played sports, team sports in high school, it seems similar to what we were always kind of taught there, meaning that if someone didn't do something as a team, we had to go run ladders across the basketball floor, or we had to go do something because they either didn't make their free throws or they didn't do something. It seems like that same thing is happening here. They have a concept, and it may be good for some, but they're pushing it to everyone as though this is now the standard that everyone has to do, without taking into consideration different body types, different eating styles, different cultures, different backgrounds, whatever the case is, it all comes into that. One size fits all is really here, and I think that's probably part of the biggest mistake, because you will find people who maybe, historically didn't have a heavy population, but they're becoming that way because of a diet or a recommendation for a diet that didn't take into consideration their lifestyle, their heredity, whatever it is. And I think that's a big mistake. It's, making the whole team run for something that one person did.
yeah. Another way that our public health, the people telling us what to eat, that I think should be addressed is they're telling us that our daily caloric intake should be 2,500 calories. I think that's way overkill. I mean, I think that you could probably, in fact, I'm not saying you could live off of 1,500 calories a day. So why are they telling us to 2,500 is what we should base our daily consumption on?
Yeah, so it seems like there's a little bit of something in the background there, because if you think back to when we were hunters and gatherers, right, there was no way that they were surviving off 2,500 to 3,000 calories a day, maybe once in a month when they had a good kill or something, but that was relatively impossible, and yet they still existed. So I think that there is some consideration, and maybe that's a little too high, even for big guys. I think that might be something to consider.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what the solution to this is, because, I think public health, there's a lot of things that public health needs to do to get the health of our country turned around. I support anybody who makes an effort, other than people who make an effort that is baldly stupid. I'm trying to think of how to describe, the food compass and the My Plate, because both of those were just straight from the get-go. Children understood how dumb they were. I mean, I went up when we were preparing for this. I went up and was watching the video on YouTube about when Sonny Perdue came out and started talking about the My Plate thing from 2011, and it was hilarious because you'd see all these places where kids had gone in and said, "They made me watch this, and this is so dumb." They made me watch this in school, and it's more boring than.
Well, I think probably because there's a lot when they're taught at home by someone who has a mild amount of knowledge on good health food, and they're doing that, and then they go there and learn something completely opposite that's now indoctrinating at the school level, and they go home and tell their mom they told us to eat this or that, when mom knows or dad knows that they're going to have these square meals and they're going to be healthy and less processed and everything. So it certainly doesn't match up in the kid's mind.
Well, my kids, they understood it. When I chatted with them about this and pointed some of that out, they started harassing me and telling me I needed to buy more Lucky Charms. But the interesting thing is that my kids, I mentioned that I got cold cereal one time a year on Christmas Day. My kids would get it. They get it once a week. They get it Sunday morning for breakfast. But they both like Lucky Charms. That's their cereal.
Oh, yeah.
One of them liked Cinnamon Toast Crunch for a while, but now they're both on the Lucky Charms. I'll buy a box of Lucky Charms, and it will go stale before my kids eat it.
Wow.
Okay? I'll be like, what do you want for breakfast? Cereal? No, we want crepes. And so I'll make them crepes. Okay? Which crepes, I don't know if you know, but they have a large amount of protein in them. They're, they have a lot of eggs in them. And they mix it with, they put fresh fruit and,
nice.
Stuff on them like that. Whipping cream. And no, we don't put sugar in our whipping cream.
Everything can take sugar, right?
Well, So anyways, but that is, I would support our public health agencies really taking action to address the obesity crisis. I think the first thing that they need to do is simply reduce the number of calories that is recommended in a diet. There's plenty of studies out there, because I've read them, where they show that having just restricted calorie helps people lose weight. Okay? Us having the idea in the back of our head, because we've been educated to this, 2,500 to 3,000 calories a day, when we eat 2,000, we're like, oh, I'm going to be so healthy. But we always go back to the stopgap of what the government tells us, because we have this innate culture that we should trust our government. And, you can go back now for at least to the Kennedy assassination, and we shouldn't be trusting our government.
Certainly, explicitly.
Yes, so it was a lone gunman.
So what role do they have then? What role should the government have in this?
I think that the government they need to revamp it. I don't think they need to come out with a food pyramid or a compass or a plate or, telling me that kale tastes good and that I should eat a lot of it. They should figure out a roadmap. And I don't have the answer to that, because I'm not, that isn't something that
Sure.
I've done. But they should have a way to help people find something that works for them. I think nutrition is something that needs to be taught. I almost think it should be a mandatory class in high school, and having it in PE doesn't count. And I think it's important that we have it, because what we have now is we have people growing up who never had a nutrition class in their life. I mean, they're almost like doctors. We all think doctors understand nutrition, but they, they didn't really have an education in nutrition. But they should be teaching nutrition. I mean, you should have a required class in high school about nutrition, about hygiene, about all of this stuff. Maybe even in junior high. Even though kids in junior high, my daughter's in junior high, I don't think they retain anything that they learned in those 2 years.
Yeah.
So maybe do it in high school.
Well, what I think that's interesting, because I think if we were to take some of the private sector, and if you found nutritionists who had private clients, they knew it did, instead of just the academic side, it seems like either in government, they're either getting people who are qualified in adjacent knowledge, whether it's pharmaceutical or what, find nutritionists, get a panel of nutritionists that are in private practice, that are actually practicing and seeing it work on patients. That's where we're going to see the biggest, because otherwise it's all academic or theoretical, in my opinion, that they're practicing things that someone developed in a thought lab. It wasn't necessarily something there. So getting those people who are practicing it, who can see it work, can see the different body types and do that, that's where you need a panel of 20 people that are doing that and coming and advising the others who are then pushing it out. But if it just comes from the government, like many things, it's not going to be ideal.
Never trust a bureaucrat with your health.
Yeah.
Never. But having said that, I think also that if public health stopped spending money on pharmaceuticals and started spending it on health education, I think we'd be money ahead also.
Yeah.
And they're not. And we've discussed this in past podcasts. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, we did one where I mentioned Bernie Sanders and him wanting to put more funding toward restorative dental care, but no money toward prevention. I think that you put money into health and into prevention and into motivating the population to be healthy, then I think you're going to be money ahead and you're going to save money. And that's really what our government needs to do.
Well, it seems like ironically, in a country that has so much freedom or claims so much freedom, many people.
Let's go with claims.
That's it. I think it is. They claim so much freedom, yet we're so willing to just follow, government instead of stop and discuss it ourselves, find out, investigate it more because it's convenient, which I think leads to even the food compass. It's just convenient. It turns out to a matter of convenience and what appeases that. But following the government's guidelines or what they say is guidelines seems easier than doing something on your own. Yet that's the right answer, because even with that example you just said, if he's doing that, it's because it's easier to go and get some restorative dental care instead of figure out the root cause of something.
It's true. So, do you have anything else to add?
Got to go home and look at my cereal closet and see if I have any Lucky Charms or Frosted Flakes, so I can get
Frosted Mini Wheats.
Frosted Mini Wheats.
Not Frosted Flakes.
That's right, Frosted Mini Wheats. So I can get my training going.
Yes, and the kale.
The kale, yes, that's good. I started intermittent fasting, so I'm fasting till noon.
One of the other ones that was high up on that chart, which I find ridiculous also, let me find it here, was actually orange juice with calcium. Okay? And I'm going to tell you right this, and I did mention this in a podcast in the past. Fruit juice, in my humble opinion, is no better for you than soda pop. It's loaded with sugar. It doesn't have the fiber that helps. When you eat a fruit, there's a lot of fiber that slows down the absorption and the breaking out of that sugar. When you take all that out, you're just drinking sugar water. That's why you don't put it in, I think I said don't put it in a sippy cup. Don't ever put fruit juice in a sippy cup because it just rots your mouth out. But that was hilarious.
Yeah.
That fruit juice. But they added with calcium because I think it's Minute Maid is the only one that makes it with calcium, I think, or maybe it's Tropicana.
So they're processing
I want free
something.
orange juice. I'm kidding. I don't drink it. Anyways.
Yeah, I think it's certainly an interesting topic, and hopefully this inspires the audience to then go and look and see. And the food compass may not be directing you where it needs to be, but your own investigation needs to. It's time to go back.
Yes, I hope that people who are watching this podcast do take matters into your own hands and find out what works for you. Find out what allows you to be healthy. It may be that you're going to go jog 25 miles a day and burn up all the calories and eat 5-pound bag of sugar every day. I'm not going to recommend it, but that might be what works for you. But really, it's taking personal responsibility, saying, hey, I want to be healthy. I want to be healthy for my kids. I want to be healthy for my spouse. I want to be healthy for myself. Improve my quality of life. So instead of sitting around and ordering pizza, go outside and take a walk, even when the government tells you not to. I'm not encouraging you to break the law.
Yeah.
But, if they're kind of dumb rules, then they probably should be examined. But anyways, I just want to encourage people to always, take personal responsibility for your health. Make sure that you're eating and exercising in a way that is sustainable to you and in a way that allows you to be as healthy as you want to be.
Yeah. That's ideal. That's what I love it. That's really the key. That personal responsibility as opposed to leaving it up to someone else to make the decisions. And just give me your magic pill. It's now better to take your own personal responsibility. So I agree. That's a good thought.
Well, I guess that's all we have today. That's another episode of Clear the Air. And we'll see you next time.
Sounds good. Thank you.
This episode was hosted by Nathan Jones, co-hosted by Joel Melton, produced by David Monk. Associate producer, Matthew Davis. Video and audio were edited by Caleb Scoresby. Research by Sabre Bills. Graphics by Joseph Thornton. Music by Augusto Diniz. If you enjoyed this episode of Clear the Air, be sure to follow, like, and subscribe so you don't miss out on the latest episode. Have a favorite episode? Share it with a friend or on social media. New episodes of Clear the Air are published weekly on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.